Sri Krishnaya Paramatmane Namaga. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaga. Pathanjali Yoga Sutram. Samaadhi Paadham. Sutram 1. Atha Yoganushāsanam. Now the yoga is explained. Sutram 2. Yoga Chitta Vriddhi Nirodhaha. Yoga is restraining the mind stuff, which is chitta, from taking various forms known as vriddhis. A good deal of explanation is necessary here. We have to understand what chitta is and what are these vriddhis. I have this eye. Eyes do not see. Take away the brain center which is in the head, the eyes will still be there. The retinae complete and also the picture, and yet the eyes will not see. So the eyes are only a secondary instrument, not the organ of vision. The organ of vision is in the nerve center of the brain. The two eyes will not be sufficient alone. Sometimes a man is asleep with his eyes open. The light is there and the picture is there, but a third thing is necessary. Mind must be joined to the organ. The eye is the external instrument. We need also the brain center and the agency of the mind. Carriages roll down a street and you do not hear them. Why? Because your mind has not attached itself to the organ of hearing. First there is the instrument, then there is the organ, and third the mind attachment to these two. The mind takes the impression farther in and presents it to the determinative faculty, buddhi, which reacts. Along with this reaction flashes the idea of egoism. Then this mixture of action and reaction is presented to the Purusha, the real soul, who perceives an object in this mixture. The organs, namely Indriyas, together with the mind, Manas, the determinative faculty, Buddhi, and egoism, Ahamkara, form the group called the Antakarana, the internal instrument. They are but various processes in the mind stuff called Chitta. The waves of thought in the Chitta are called Vriddhi. The whirlpool is the literal translation. What is thought? Thought is a force, as is gravitation or repulsion. It is absorbed from the infinite storehouse of that force, and when it passes out at the other end, it is called thought. This force is supplied to us through food, and out of that food, the body obtains the power of motion, etc. Others, the finer forces, it throws out in what we call thought. Naturally, we see that the mind is not intelligent, yet it appears to be intelligent. Why? Because the intelligent soul is behind it. You are the only sentient being. Mind is only the instrument through which you catch the external world. Take this book. As a book, it does not exist outside. What exists outside is unknown and unknowable. It is the suggestion that gives a blow to the mind, and the mind gives out the reaction. If a stone is thrown into the water is thrown against it in the form of waves. The real universe is the occasion of the reaction of the mind. A book form or an elephant form or a man form is not outside. All that we know is our mental reaction from the outer suggestion. Matter is the permanent possibility of sensation, said John Stuart Mill. It is only the suggestion that is outside. Take an oyster, for example. You know how pearls are made. A grain of sand or something gets inside and begins to irritate it, and the oyster throws a sort of enameling around the sand, and this makes the pearl. This whole universe is our own enamel, so to say, and the real universe is the grain of the sand. The ordinary man will never understand it because when he tries to, he throws out an enamel and sees only his own enamel. Now we understand what is meant by these vrittis. The real man is behind the mind, and the mind is the instrument in his hands, and it is his intelligence that is percolating through it. It is only when you stand behind it that it becomes intelligent. When man gives it up, it falls to pieces and is nothing. So you understand what is meant by chitta. It is the mind stuff, and vrittis are the waves and ripples rising in the mind stuff when external causes impinge on it. These vrittis are our whole universe. The bottom of the lake we cannot see because its surface is covered with ripples. It is only possible when the ripples have subsided and the water is calm for us to catch a glimpse of the bottom. If the water is muddy, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is agitated all the time, the bottom will not be seen. If the water is clear and there are no waves, we shall see the bottom. That bottom of the lake is our own true self. The lake is the chitta and the waves are the vrittis. Again, this mind is in three states. One is darkness, which is called tamas. Just as in brutes and idiots, it only acts to injure others. No other idea comes into that state of mind. Then there is the active state of mind, rajas, whose chief motives are power and enjoyment. I'll be powerful and rule others. Then, at last, when the waves cease and the water of the lake becomes clear, there is the state called sattva, serenity or calmness. It is not inactive, but rather intensely active. It is the greatest manifestation of power to be calm. It is easy to be active. Let the reins go, and the horses will drag you down. Anyone can do that, but he who can stop the plunging horses is the strong man, which requires the greater strength, letting go or restraining. The calm man is not the man who is dull. You must not mistake sattva for dullness or laziness. The calm man is the one who has restraint of these waves. Activity is the manifestation of the lower strength, calmness of the superior strength. This chitta is always trying to get back to its normal pure state, but the organs draw it out. To restrain it and to check this outward tendency and to start it on the return journey to that essence of intelligence is the first step in yoga. Because only in this way can the chitta get into its proper course. Although this chitta is in every animal, from the lowest to the highest, it is only in the human form that we find intellect. And until the mind stuff can take the form of intellect, it is not possible for it to return through all these steps and liberate the soul. Immediate salvation is impossible for the cow and the dog, although they have mind, because their chitta cannot as yet take that form which we call intellect. Chitta manifests itself in all these different forms: scattering, darkening, weakening, and concentrating. These are the four states in which the mind stuff manifests itself. First, a scattered form is activity. Its tendency is to manifest in the form of pleasure or of pain. Then the dull form is darkness, the only tendency of which is to injure others. The commentator says the first form is natural to the devas, the angels, and the second is the demonical form. The ekagra, the concentrated form of the chitta, is what brings us to Samaadhi. This is one of the most important sutrams, Yoga Chitta Vriddhi Nirodha, Sutram 2. So any amount of ruminating its meaning, its intent, and study about this and understand about this from various texts or information or from narrations of realized souls or great beings will not be sufficient for ordinary mortals. So, lot amount of effort in understanding it, in assimilating it is required and will be the follow-up work of this sutra. Sutra 3. Tatha drashtu swarupe avasthanam. At that time, the time of concentration, the seer, the Purusha, rests in his own unmodified state. As soon as the waves have stopped and the lake has become quiet, we see the ground below the lake. So, with the mind, when it is calm, we see what our nature is. We do not mix ourselves but remain our own selves. Sutram 4. Vriddhi sarubhyamitarata. At other times, other than that of concentration or yoga, the seer is identified with the modifications. For instance, I am in a state of sorrow. Someone blames me. This is a modification, vritti, and I identify myself with it, and the result is misery. Sutra 5. Vrityah panchatayah klishta aklishta. There are 5 classes of modifications or vritti: painful and not painful. Sutram 6. Pramana viparyaya vikalpa nidrasmrutayah. These are right knowledge, indiscrimination, verbal delusion, sleep, and memory. Sutram 7. Pratyakshanumanagamaha pramanani. Direct perception, inference, and competent evidence are proofs. When two of our perceptions do not contradict each other, we call it proof. I hear something, and if it contradicts something already perceived, I begin to fight it out and do not believe it. There are also 3 kinds of proof: direct perception, pratyaksham. Whatever we see and feel is proof. If there has been nothing to delude the senses, I see the world. That is sufficient proof that it exists. Secondly, anumana, inference. You see a sign, and from the sign you come to the thing signified. Thirdly, aptavakyam, the direct perception of the yogi, of those who have seen the truth. We are all of as struggling towards knowledge. But you and I have to struggle hard and come to knowledge through a long, tedious process of reasoning. But the yogi, the pure one, has gone beyond all this. Before his mind, the past, the present, and the future are alike one book for him to read. He does not require to go through all this tedious process, and his words are proofs because he sees knowledge in himself. He is the omniscient one. These, for instance, are the authors of the sacred scriptures. Therefore, the scriptures are proof, and if any such persons are living now, their words will be proof. Other philosophers go into long discussions about this apta, and they say, what is the proof that this is truth? The proof is because they see it. Because whatever I see is proof, and whatever you see is proof. If it does not contradict any past knowledge, there is knowledge beyond the senses, and whenever it does not contradict reason and past human experience, that knowledge is proof. Any madman may come into this room and say that he sees angels around him. That would not be proof. In the first place, it must be true knowledge, and secondly, it must not contradict knowledge of the past, and thirdly, it must depend upon the character of the man. I hear it said that the character of the man is not of so much importance as what he may say. We must first hear what he says. This may be true in other things. A man may be wicked and yet make an astronomical discovery. But in religion, it is different, because no impure man will ever have the power to reach the truths of religion. Therefore, we have first of all to see that the man who declares himself to be an apta is a perfectly unselfish and holy person. Secondly, that he has reached beyond the senses, and thirdly, that what he says does not contradict the past knowledge of humanity. Any new discovery of truth does not contradict the past truth, but fits into it. And fourthly, that truth must have a possibility of verification. If a man says, I have seen a vision, and tells me that I have no right to see it, I believe him not. Everyone must have the power to see it for himself. No one who sells his knowledge is an apta. All these conditions must be fulfilled. You must first see that the man is pure, and that he has no selfish motive, that he has no thirst for gain or fame. Secondly, he must show that he is super conscious. Thirdly, he must have given us something that we cannot get from our senses and which is for benefit of the world. And we must see that it does not contradict the truths. If it contradicts other scientific truths, reject it at once. Fourthly, the man should never be singular. He should only represent what all men can attain. Three sorts of proof are then direct sense perception, inference, and the words of an apta. I cannot translate this word into English. It is not the word inspired, because that comes from outside, while this comes from himself. The literal meaning is attained. Sutra 8. Viparyayo mitra jnanam atatrupa pratishtam. Indiscrimination is false knowledge not established in real nature. The next class of vrittis that arise is mistaking the one thing for the other. As a piece of mother of pearl is taken for a piece of silver. Sutram 9. sabdha jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpaha. Verbal delusion follows from words having no corresponding reality. There is another class of vrittis called vikalpa. A word is uttered and we do not wait to consider its meaning. We jump to a conclusion immediately. It is the sign of weakness of the chitta. Now you can understand the theory of restraint. The weaker the man, the less he has the restraint. Consider yourself always in that way. When you are going to be angry or miserable, reason it out. How it is that some news that has come to you is throwing your mind into vrittis. Sutra 10. Abhava pratyayalambhana vrittir nitraha. The sleep is a vritti which embraces the feeling of voidness. The next class of vrittis is called sleep and dream. When we awake, we know that we have been sleeping. We can only have memory of perception. That which we do not perceive, we never can have any memory of. Every reaction is a wave in the lake. Now, if during sleep the mind has no waves, it would have no perceptions, positive or negative, and therefore we would not remember them. The very reason of our remembering sleep is that during sleep there was a certain class of waves in the mind. Memory is another class of vrittis, which is called smriti. Sutram 11. Anubhuta Vishaya Sampramoshaha Smritihi. Memory is when the vrittis of perceived subjects do not slip away and through impressions come back to consciousness. Memory can be caused by the previous three. For instance, you hear a word. That word is like a stone thrown into the lake of chitta. It causes a ripple, and that ripple rouses a series of ripples. This is memory. So in sleep, when the peculiar kind of ripple called sleep throws the chitta into a ripple of memory, it's called a dream. Dream is another form of the ripple, which in the waking state is called memory. This completes Sutrams 1 to 11 of Samadhi Pada. The summary of these 11 Sutrams would run as follows. Sutras 1 to 3 talk about what is yoga and what are the uses of the yoga. In this, the Sutram 2 is considered as the most important of all the sutras. It will be very, very beneficial to keep ruminating about this sutra for any sadhaka. Sutram 4 talks about the tendencies of the mind that is not concentrated. Sutram 5 talks about various states in which our mind travels or it is. They are proper understanding and mistaken understanding, imagination that is void of meaning or substance, then memory and sleep. In Sutras 6 to 11, the aforesaid 5 stages are talked about. We will see from Sutrams 12 onwards in the next episode. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.